Had a wonderful honeymoon down at Victor Harbour. I had nice meals, lots of hijacking, but the worst thing was the steel frame bed in the bedroom. Well, anyone knows what it's like with a steel frame brass bed. We ended up, because of the noise it made when we were enjoying ourselves, we pulled the mattress off the bed and had fun on the floor. And that was it. That was a very sexy 10 days. We couldn't have a longer wedding, honeymoon, because I had to attend the university for my first year of failures. But I think the main thing, we all sort of forgot at the time, why did this happen? Really, when I got out of the Navy, I was lost. I really didn't know what to do. I had no ambitions of anything. I didn't want to be a farmer. I didn't want to be a tradesman. When I got out of the Navy, they gave us all the so-called psychological tests. And you know what they said I should do? A bloody bus driver. I had no intention of ever being a bus driver, so I was not impressed. And here comes the best one. Nancy and I decided to get a little bit pickled these days. I got a large bottle of creme de menthe. Have you ever heard of a creme de menthe frappe? It's a schooner glass, one of those long glasses that I drink out of, filled with actually powdered ice. You put a nobbler of creme de menthe in it, the rest with lemonade. It's the most delightful drink. And this night, I said to Nance, I hope you've got some nice clothes to wear tonight when we hit the sack. So we started drinking this damn stuff and we knocked the whole bloody bottle of creme de menthe off. So a bit tiddly, I said to Nance, I better go in the bedroom, I'll be in a minute. I go in there, she's passed out. So that was the end of our wedding anniversary, second wedding anniversary, first wedding anniversary, sorry, to have a bit of fun. And I did complete the matriculation, and therein I ended the next 2 years of my life making an absolute galah of myself by failing in doing the first year engineering. So I transferred to science. I failed in science. I'm not really ashamed, because really I was not a student. Never was, even though I matriculated. It didn't make me a good student. I never studied anything in my life. It didn't come easy. I didn't want to know it. But I did spend 2 years in 2 factories as a process worker, where I learnt welding. I operated the machine doing lathe work and polishing, buffing, pressing, and I found it very useful in my future life in my building 4 homes. Eventually, Mum said to me, son, you better get a job behind a desk. So I did it, and I asked for a job in the government, because that'd be a good place to go, while I waited for another year to find out whether I could find something interesting. And I did find it in the department, and I didn't know it. It was the employment agency called the Commonwealth Employment Service. Well, I transferred into that after a few years working in accounts, which I didn't like accounts. And eventually I got promoted up through the ranks, up to the dizzy heights of what's called a Principal Employment Officer. I was dealing with the professions and businesses. The one thing you had to know, otherwise you were not successful. You had to know all the accounting firms, you had to know all the business firms in Adelaide on a friendly basis. So I joined the Institute of Personnel Management, and you meet them all on a regular basis at their meetings. I stopped counting at 50,000 people I'd interviewed over my life. Out of my 30 years, it was 25 years I interviewed people all day, every day. So that remained until I retired in 1956. Well, rationing was a fair cow, really. We bought an old clapped out 8 horsepower Austin motor car. It was all white, so I had the mud guards painted red. That was the old school colours, red and white. And I got a lousy 4 gallons a month rationing. So what you did, you topped the carburetor up with good petrol, and you filled up the tank with power kerosene. It stank, and you put your foot down, you get a perfectly large black cloud out the back of your car, which was a dead giveaway. So then there was food rationing. They were still living on food tickets. You couldn't buy clothing, you couldn't buy food, you couldn't buy grog. If you knew someone in the beer game, you might get a bottle of beer would cost you at least 4 schooners of beer at the front bar in the pub before he'd sell you a bottle. It was so hard to get. So if you wanted a party, I'm not kidding, you'd have to visit something like 10 or 12 pubs to get enough bottle to make a party. And we did that. You couldn't get building materials. So instead of building a house for say about 1,500 quid, it cost 2,200 quid, or thereabouts, which would have built a damn nice house in those days. A normal 2-bedroom house would be about £1,000 in our money. I gave them a hand-drawn plan of the house. It cost me 5 guineas. I didn't have any extension, I didn't have a north or south, east or west plan of the house, just the base plan. Paid them 5 guineas and got approval. It was bloody amazing. It really was. Not today, you don't get away with that. Anyway, we had to buy all hard to buy materials which were not rationed. You could buy Mount Gambier freestone down at Mount Gambier, South Australia, and you could buy timber from Malaysia. So we bought timber through Malaysia for the roof. You couldn't get any bricks at all, you couldn't get a plumber to help you, you couldn't get an electrician to help you, you had to do it yourself. But of course, in the end, anyone who's smart enough, you make damn sure you make a lot of friends. And you know who's in the trade, and we did just that. We had quick living with the lounge and dining room. It was all one space with the kitchen just off the dining room. And we had 2 bedrooms and a large bathroom. In the end, it cost us 600 quid more than we really wanted to spend. And that lasted, I suppose, to the early 50s. I've just forgotten when they cut it out. All the permits were wiped out and you could get what you liked as long as they could supply it. So that was our first home. We stayed there for 6 years, and that house took us 2 years to build. And Rob was born in 49. We called him Robert after Dad. And we liked the name Broughton, Port Broughton, the biggest town in his electorate. So we called Nancy liked the name Broughton, B-R-O-U-G-H-T-O-N. So that's where he got his name from. And he became the tiger of the house, very demanding from the moment he could walk.
Robert was born bossy, just like his father.
And he was pretty good at it too. And then we had a daughter born 4 years after Rob. Judy's name was Judith Milroy. Milroy's an old family name on her mother's side. She was born in the same house, but she was a little toddler, and believe it or not, Rob used to look after her. He was very good looking after his sister. But that was marvellous.
He was the inquisitive, why, what are you doing that for? Judy was the quiet little sweet one, and Robert used to complain to me that, we were both mollycoddling her, we were stupid, we shouldn't do this, you know, she had to stand on 2 feet. Well, guess who was being very kind to her and showing her what to do and being very nice to her? Robert, which is most unusual. Boys didn't fight with their sisters, but he was a good boy. He looked after her. Robert said to me one day, "You told a lie, Mum." I said, "No, I don't tell lies. I told a few fibs to my children because I didn't want them frightened." When he said he didn't like the thunder, I said, "Well, it's just the clouds banging." "Well, why?" I said, "Oh, God did it." "Well, tick God off," he told me, and I said, "Unfortunately, I can't do that, but you just have to put up with it."
The final big thing we did at this house, every Christmas, illegally of course, we were on the road to the bowls club, right? Not far from the sea, but the bowls club was between us and the sea. And you wouldn't believe it, they'd go down there, the only road made was bitumen. The rest was sand. Anyway, every year on Christmas Day, I'd paint the year. I can still remember doing 1951, 1952, 1953 in big 6-foot-long letters on the road. No one ever dobbed me in, but everyone drove over them for years. So that was the only naughty thing I did to upset the council. We moved into our second house, which was right on the seafront. A beautiful home it was. Anyhow, I had this big shed built out the back, and before we moved in there, we were renting a house because we'd sold ours, and we had to get out of the rented house. And I built this 30 by 20 shed, which ended up another extension again on top of that. And a big high shed, and I wanted to build a boat. We lived in the shed. We had both the kids with us in their beds, covered with fine sheets every night, because the sand, we're right on the seafront, white sand. The whole shed got flooded with white sand. It used to blow in all the cracks. Anyway, we covered it, so we lived there, I think, for 3 or 4 months. Anyway, we then decided to build a boat. Our local doctor, he wanted a boat, and I said, well, I think I'll build one. I have to admit this, I did 3/4 of it. All he did was hold the dolly. He couldn't even hold the dolly square, and I did a riveting job. I put in thousands of rivets, make it out of aluminium. The whole thing was aluminium. I filled the boat up with foam, so if it's ever going to sink, it'll still float. A little cabin up on the front for Nancy to keep her hair dry when we went fishing. It took 14 months to complete, and really it was a magnificent job, if I do say so myself. We all enjoyed it. We kept it for 10 years.
Well, I liked fishing, I liked boating, I liked boys' things.
We often went down to the outer harbour, which was the best place to go to get into the deep sea. So there was one day we were out in the boat in shallowish water, and I thought there was a shark. I didn't give a damn about anybody. I rushed across the water about 1 foot deep, leapt straight into the boat. You wouldn't believe that I could leap from that water straight over the back of the boat, which with water and the boat would be a good 3 or 4 feet up, I suppose. I leapt in, and I woke up. It wasn't a shark, it was a damn squid. A great case of cowardly custard. Preservation is only for the lively. I've never forgotten that day. God, they didn't let me forget it for a while.
Yeah, I used to refer to your chief psychologist all the time. And I met this chief psychologist, and he stood on the other side of the room just seeing everybody out, and I thought, what a horror. And I remember we went out to on our boat and had to go fishing the next day, and that's when he wanted to know which was the true Nancy, the one that was there all dolled up to the nines and being very proper, or the one next day with dungy old clothes on and fishing and enjoying it. He said, which is the real Nancy? I said, both. I love doing both things. No, you can't do that. I said, that's in your book. I said, don't listen to your book. I'm both, and I'll stay both. So I think he rather liked me after that, because he came on the boat again another time.
So we kept it for that time and had a lot of fun. We took it to our 3rd house we built on the seafront, which we liked better than the second one, because we ended up with an ensuite in our bedroom. We got to the style of modernising a little. The kids had the bathroom and the toilet separate, of course. We had an ensuite and a rumpus room out the back, and of course the swimming pool. Anyway, what did I do in the rumpus room? Built a bloody bar and a billiard table. The biggest mistake of my life. The number of people who come, how about a game of billiards? As soon as you go out to have a game of billiards, you get in it to drink. So elbow bending was the favourite occupation. Lots of beer went down the hatch, and brandy, whoever drinks the stuff. We were always members of the Liberal Party. When we moved up to Unley from down at Brighton area, we suddenly realised we were looking for more things to do, and we felt things weren't going right in the Liberal Party, because they're all people were trying to change things. The younger people were trying to change some of the old systems. So Nancy and I became involved, so did Robert, and we liked to be there while they were trying to make the changes, and I think we did our best to make it go through simply, because I didn't agree with all they said. A lot of the stuff I did agree.
I learnt about politics and how dirty it can be at times, and how good it can be at times.
But you know what politics are like? They change like the wind. Whose side are you on? Nancy was the greatest worker of the Liberal Party.
Because I was someone that was a volunteer, and they were very short of volunteers, they sort of grabbed me. They even gave me a little officer down the end And if they wanted someone to know something about the party, they'd send them down to me and I'd tell them all about the Liberal Party, which was, as I thought, very good.
9 o'clock to 5 every day for 5 years he worked for Senator Tony Messner. Organised committees for him.
And I don't know, I sort of got involved with them in the end, and I was doing all sorts of things. And that's when I met a lot of politicians and rather enjoyed it.
In fact, Dad was chaired a federal electorate committee of Boothby for many, many years. Mum was on the state executive of the Liberal Party in South Australia, was the Women's Council representative. I then became very much involved in the Young Liberals and ran for Parliament for the seat of Unley, and Mum and Dad both pitched in to help me for 3 years as my workers and secretary and manager of my campaign.
Nobody knew they were talking to his mother Nancy, and they knew me, but they didn't recognise the voice. They all thought you had a secretary, because I was down on the card as secretary, and that was good. I really enjoyed that, being Rob's secretary. I can remember a lot of people ringing up and saying, "Oh, I'm a great friend of the Nicholls, you know, and you're the secretary, aren't you?" "Yes, I'm the secretary." Not one of them recognised my voice, knew they were talking to me all the time. I had fun talking to them about being secretary to Robert.
So the political influence and interest, and I think right through all of our family, there's a continued interest in that aspect of our lives.
Apart from the Probus, I was a member of the RSL as well as the Naval Association. We had a crew of 1,280 men on our heavy cruiser. And we had 150 in South Australia. When I took over president, we were down to 120. And just the last couple of years, I heard from the president, they're now down to 3 people. I believe it's now 1. So anyway, while I was in the Navy and associated with the Army, I decided to write a book about the history of the ship. And so I wrote down everything I could find the hard way by visiting various meetings throughout Australia. I went to every state and attended their general meetings. I told them what I was up to. I asked them for support and information. Apart from that, they did send me something like 10,000 photographs. So I suddenly became an amateur photographer. I bought all the gear I needed and I copied 10,000 photographs, which in the end I only used about 300, I think, from memory in the book. So I then went for the official records. So my last trip was I hired a caravan, which I have to admit my wife wasn't really happy with the caravan.
And I can remember the fun about that. He brought the caravan around, and daughter Judy came around to see it, and Robert came to see it, and everyone's doing out of the caravan, and I'm sitting there looking sour, and Judy came in for the first time in her life, said, "Mum, Dad's given in to you for everything you ever wanted. You had your posse-do holidays, everything you wanted. Now because he wants something in the caravan, you're turning up your nose. Don't be mean to Dad." Now this is my Judy, who never said anything like that. She always treated me mother, and mummy this, and mummy that. Told me that I was being nasty, and I thought, oh goodness, I am, aren't I? So I didn't say another word. I kept quiet about it. Went on this terrible caravan trip and smiled all the time, and sent cards back to Judy saying I'm being good. I hate it, it's horrible, but I'm being good.
Anyhow, we went to all the states again. Went to all the records in Melbourne, Brisbane, Canberra, got copies of everything, thousands of sheets of paper from all the monthly reports, the action reports, the gunnery reports, the engineers reports. So I sat down and amalgamated all that with what I knew myself, and some of the stuff I collated from people, which also jogged my memory to what I knew, and I put it together after 6 months.
And one day Stan said, "I don't like this caravanning much, do you?" I said, "I hate it." He said, "So do I." So we didn't do much more caravanning after that. We had to finish off what we started, didn't we? But we didn't like it and we didn't do it after that.
The last year I sat down, I just wrote 7 days a week, page after page of all the stuff, plus adding photographs and getting the thing as factual as it could be. And it was printed in 1989. So at any rate, they printed the whole $1,000 for steak, and that all got sold off in 2 months to the crew. They then printed another 400, and they did an overrun of nearly another 100, which they gave me for free. I gave round to various friends of mine, and that's the end result of the HMAS Shropshire by Stan Nicholls.
Mum and Dad have always been about family, even though they'll talk about the early days of Dad being a Methodist and Mum being Church of England, or Anglican now. There's no doubt that their religion, for right or wrong, has been family. It's always been the centre of everything they've done. So that they've always been there just for us, whether it's been Judy and I, or the grandchildren, Andrew and Cameron and Julia, and now of course the great-grandchildren.
I doted on my children and my grandchildren. Didn't think I'd be like that, but I am. Robert has been a wonderful son. I've been very lucky, both with my son and daughter.
My son, his first marriage was when he was 20. We weren't quite happy about that, but we made him a promise to he and his future wife that if they could save up $2,500 in those days, we'd agree. You wouldn't believe it, they did it. They worked everywhere. They'd come down and have meals with us so they could save their cash. Well, then they got married and they had one son. He's a nice lad in his own way. However, 5 years later, it was all off, finished. It was pretty sad really, because family relations caused that trouble. And he married his second wife, but this time had the right girl, but they lived together for a while to make sure everything was pretty hunky-dory, and we liked that, and it turned out very good indeed.
And he even gave me away at my wedding. My parents couldn't come to our wedding, so he gave me away and drove up in that wonderful Jag of his, and again we just had one big party at that wedding.
Chris, she's a great daughter-in-law, great. She thinks like I do about clothes and things, and she's always been very kind to me.
I lost my mother when I was about 28, and so really Nance became a surrogate mother to me, and we lunched, we partied, we holidayed, we modelled together, and we just had so much fun.
Oh, that all started because they were apparently short of older women. They had plenty of young kids wanting to be models, but not older people. They said, generally got pot bellies and floppy arms, and I hadn't. I was firm-bodied, so I was just luck, I suppose. And I started my fun career when I was old. She's always done the fingernails for me, painted the fingernails. Chris will bring things for me to see and brings me lovely clothes to wear. She's a wonderful daughter-in-law. Ray, he was fine to start with, and then he got a bee in his bonnet. He wanted to be alone with Judy, and we didn't see so much of her then, and she thought he was wonderful, so that I'm glad she had him. She was happy. The important thing.
When my husband died 4 years ago, they would have liked to come down to the funeral, but they couldn't.
He left everything to Judy. It was all his money, that he'd never spent a thing.
But I've had huge family support from all of them. I make regular phone calls to Mum and Dad all the time, and they phone me, and we have fun and laughter, and Mum talks about the past. And
so everything's happy with the family. She comes up here a couple of times and stays with us.
So I'm very lucky. I've got a good son, good daughter, good grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I loved my grandchildren very much.
Cameron, a ripper-dipper. I've always loved Cameron. He took my name Stanley, by the way, too.
He's kind and gentle. He's a very nice person. I love him to bits.
And he's the most likeable, cheerful, happy bloke. Smart as paint too. He likes a joke. He and I get on very well. He's a lovable boy.
And you know, I was reminiscent about Gaga picking me up from school and on the way home listening to Rodney Rood tapes, and we weren't supposed to do it. It was a bit naughty, but you know, I learned how to say the F word, and you know, I really enjoyed that. You know, with Nana, it was always, you know, making me feel really special. She always used to say, "You're the light of my life, Cameron." So there was always that comforting and warm feeling.
I always said I was going to dance at his wedding, and I remember getting up and dancing with him. I wasn't very good at sitting on my feet, but he held me nice and firmly, and we danced, and I'd always wanted to. And he was my favourite little boy. I don't know why, there was just something about him. Very kind, like Stan. That's why I took to him. And I love Juliet a bit so, because she's a little demon, but I love her. She's a kind demon.
When I was very young, even from the age of 7, I remember learning all the swear words, and of course my parents wouldn't let me say those, but around my grandparents I could kind of get away with whatever I wanted.
Yeah, Julia has turned out the smartest of the bunch. She's even going to floor her old man before she's finished. She's a smart chick. Well, she stuck 7.5 years at the university to get her doctorate, which really was a supreme effort.
She's very kind and very good-hearted, and she's fun, and I love her.
And I think that's how our relationship blossomed, not only from grandparents but more into a very close friendship. And I remember my grandma often saying to other people that Julie is one of my best friends, and I think Gaga felt the same way as well, because we would just talk about anything and everything when we spent time together, and we still do that today when we get on the phone.
She really is one of the most delightful of our grandchildren. She's cheerful, she's happy, and she's always ready to help. You can't stop Julia doing anything.
They're my two favourite people. I gave them things they weren't meant to have, you know, chocolates and things.
Going over to their house to get away with kind of murder and do what I wanted and have chocolate and Cocoa Pops and all the stuff Mum and Dad wouldn't let us have. But I remember the love. There was so much love and so many cuddles, and I hopped into bed and cuddled them every time I was there. And
that's what grandmas are for, aren't they? Have secrets with them. You know, that's naughty, you're not meant to do that. Don't tell Mum, don't tell Dad. They said, Mum's mean, she only buys one packet at a time. You buy a lot of packets so we can choose. I thought that was cute. All I've got to do is buy a few packets of cereal and I'm good.
So the children grew up quite close to them when they were young, and I'll never forget when we went to Melbourne, we drove away in what Stan called our yuppie truck, and he cried, and I think we all cried because we just didn't want to say goodbye to one another.
Mum and Dad, with their longevity of love and marriage, has always been a feature in our family, and has even captured the imagination in the media. At their 50th wedding anniversary, the Adelaide Advertiser took a photo, because they were married on Valentine's Day, so they featured them with a lovely photograph of Mum kissing Dan for Valentine's Day at their 50th. And surprise to all the family, that photo hit the front page of the Adelaide Advertiser with a story of love and commitment for 50 years. And then here we go again, their 70th wedding anniversary, up here in the Sunshine Coast. Our daughter Julia made contact with the project, the television show The Project, and they agreed to do a feature, thinking that how fantastic's this? You know, 70th wedding anniversary, married on Valentine's Day, 1947. And there they were, featured on The Project, showing their love and commitment and their fun in life in that clip that we'd love to see.
Now it's Valentine's Day, so who better to talk about love than a couple who celebrate their 70th wedding anniversary today?
It was 1941 and 16-year-old Stan was looking for a date to his first dance.
This friend of mine said he knew this girl who liked a bit of fun. He'll bring her if I'll bring my sister, because he'd like to meet my sister. And we danced all night.
That girl was Nancy. For Stan, it was love at first sight.
I took her out in the balcony, went for a bit of a play around and got whacked from the trouble. And we stuck together ever more after that.
He was so funny, full of jokes, and a very nice person. And I think I fell straight away without realising it. I was only 16.
But right as the young lovers' relationship was taking off, Stan was conscripted to serve in the Navy during World War II.
And I said to her, you better get out and have some fun with other people, go to the dances, because I'll be away for maybe 1, 2, 3 years. And that's the way it worked out.
you did say when you got home, I hear you going out with someone.
Oh yeah.
And I said, you told me to. I didn't like him.
She gave him the flick, and we decided to get engaged, and that was it.
But before they tied the knot, there was one obstacle to overcome.
My mother wasn't very keen. She was a snob. And I said, certainly I'm going to marry a common sailor. I said, it's the nicest one I've ever met. But years later we heard about what a wonderful husband and wonderful he was with his children. So in the end she found out he was okay.
The couple tied the knot on Valentine's Day in 1947. And today, they celebrate 70 years of marriage.
Happy anniversary,
Happy anniversary, love a boy. I'm old hag now, but I wasn't bad then.
He was bloody good. He knew how to put on makeup on, he knew how to walk tall.
I couldn't stand up that straight now.
No, I don't see there's been any change at all. I've never had any misgivings. I'm not saying I don't look at women.
Now at 91 and living in a retirement home, the great-grandparents say they're just as in love now as they were on their wedding day.
That was very exciting.
Hold hands at night even across that table. I always said before I go out, is I want to come back. We have a fairly brief cuddle at night. We are together, we're living together, and we need each other's company. I never did regret it. Love me too, and you won't regret it, Nancy.
See, he's romantic. That's why he never fall out of love with someone that's romantic. All I can say is I've had a wonderful life. Absolutely wonderful. I don't regret anything.
I think we've got a few years to go yet. Yes, hoping anyway.
No one can compare to that.
People might get cynical about Valentine's Day and the particular day, but as Nancy said, you can't fall out of love with somebody who's romantic. So there's a nice lesson there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I'm stuffed. The brain, John Creasy will join us very shortly.
The greatest lesson from Mum and Dad both, apart from family and love, has been generosity. Giving time, giving love, giving money, or whatever's needed. And it's still happening to this day. At the age of 92, they still want to support the kids, they still want to support us. So to me, the key is family, love and generosity.
And from those first days of meeting one another in companionship and fun, it turned into love. And that's the way it's been for 70 years. And I guess it will go on for the next few years, so we fall off the perch. Nancy and I know that our life has been one of love and loyalty and occasional little struggles with one another. But overall, I think it's going to continue for the day one of us signed on the dotted line to leave. So thank you very much for coming today. I think it's great. Thanks very much.
You're the kindest person I have ever met. And that is what I liked from the moment I saw you. He's lovely. He's got a lovely nature. And I just went on loving that lovely nature for all those years. I think that from the time I was 16, he's been fit.
You know, without you there, I could have been a different person, and I just want to thank you for that.
I just, you know, sometimes it brings a tear to my eye how much I love them, like when we were talking before, you know, with the family. I just, yeah, I can't say much more, but love them to the bottom of my heart.
And I love them very much, and they're part of my family, as I'm part of their family.
Well, I do love them both tremendously. We don't often say it to each other, but we know it's there. Dad's always like patting me, Mum's always patting me. She loves having girl talk with me.
I hope we will still like you, hold hands occasionally, laugh together, whisper I love you to each other, and above all, honour your example of love and faithfulness to each other and our family. Love you.
I love you.
I just love them to bits.
We love you. propose a toast to Stan and Nancy, Mum and Dad, and then on Gaga.
I had to blow one.
Yeah.